Hey, you guys. So, back again with another message from the Lord. Wanted to record this before I forget it again because it's based upon a number. The number that God showed me yesterday while I was out running errands was 2426, and it means sufficient or sufficiency, ability, or competency to do a thing. And this message ties into the other message about God is going to elevate you and things of that nature. Um, and I know one time God told me to tell his children that he was going to make them self-sufficient in certain areas, so they'll be able to do things for the upbuilding of his kingdom. But this particular word, God is saying that your sufficiency is of God. Your sufficiency that he's about to give you is of him. And the reason why God gave me this message because we are dealing with in this season, in this hour, a lot of people who are walking around in the spirit of pride. And pride is, I think, one of the 7 deadly sins, if I'm not mistaken, just as well as envy. But don't get so caught up in the elevation and the hype that you forget who put you there. You forget who will point you there. You forget where your sufficiency comes from. Even when it comes to our ability to do things and to be blessed and to prosper, those things come through to us by God. They're of God. We give God all the honor, all the glory, and all the praise, and we must put God first in everything that we do. And a lot of times people get so caught up with the blessings and with being able to do things that they forget about God, which can lead to major consequences, which can lead to major repercussions because of your actions, right? So God is saying in this season, in this hour, do not forget where your sufficiency comes from. Do not forget where your ability to do things come from. Don't forget about God. God also showed me Deuteronomy, just showed me Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 18. I know in the book of Deuteronomy, it tells us, it's a constant reminder that tells us not to forget about God, right? Don't forget about him when he blesses you. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18 says, you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the power to get wealth. So if God is about to give you the ability to the power to get wealth or with anything, remember that it comes from God, the Lord your God. You shall remember the Lord your God. You need to remember that God is the source of your sufficiency in this season, in this hour. Saying this, I know this is kind of like a warning message. Don't forget the God that you serve. Don't forget where you come from. Don't forget who allowed you to get to where you're going. Don't forget who is allowing you to be self-sufficient. That self-sufficiency comes through to you through the power of God. 2 Corinthians 3:5 says, now, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think of anything as ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God. I'm going to read that again. This is the King James Version. Not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything as of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of God. Your sufficiency is of God. Don't forget about God whenever he begins to bless you. Don't forget about God whenever he begins to elevate you. Because some people, they get beside themselves. Stay humble and remain humble. Remain faithful, remain true to God. Because when I tell you, when people begin to forget about God, when people begin to put their pride and things in the way when it comes to where they get to, and when God begins to bless them, they do suffer consequences. King Solomon was one of the wisest kings, or was a wise king, asked for wisdom, but didn't use his wisdom to glorify God, used his wisdom to glorify himself, which became the ruin of his kingdom, his own kingdom, because he used what God has blessed him with. Thank you, Holy Spirit. He used a sufficiency of wisdom to glorify himself and not to glorify God. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So don't use what God is about to give you to glorify yourself. Use what God is about to bless you with to glorify him, because Your sufficiency comes from God. That wisdom was a gift from God to King Solomon, but he misused it. He abused it instead of using it for the upbuilding of God's kingdom. Don't be like that in this season, in this hour. Your sufficiency, our sufficiency, comes from God. Okay? We thank God for the sufficiency in advance that He's about to give His children, the ability to do things, the capacity, the competency to do things. But we're not going to forget about God whenever He begins to bless us. Okay? Don't forget about God. I'm telling you, I'm seeing it firsthand through people that I know who forgot about God once God blessed them. Now they're going through so much because they didn't remember the Lord. Or they saying they remember the Lord and they think the Lord out their mouth, but it's not in their heart. It's not in their heart. It's not there. And now they're going through some things because the words that they spoke and they say was not true, were lies, and they had the wrong heart posture. God knows the heart. And they had the wrong heart posture. So again, remember your sufficiency in this season, it comes from God. It don't comes from your own strength. All right. Remember that, because a lot of people are getting caught up in judgment because they forgot who caused them to get the power of wealth, or who gave them to get the power of wealth, or who gave them the ability to be sufficient. Okay. Don't get caught up in that. All right. Remember God. Remember the Lord your God always in everything that you do. I love you guys. I pray that you all have an amazing day, and I will chat with you all later.